take a shower.
I guess there's nothing going on in the world. Nobody has any political comments or anything.
Sorry, I'm late.
Yeah. Okay. This Moed Katan is not. I mean, whatever. It's quite technical. This Moed Katan. Yeah. Okay, so we left off. Beis Amud Aleph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines up from the wide lines. Yeah, we have it.
Montana?
Yeah, Montana. That's 1, 2, 3. Yes, 6 lines up from the wide line. Montana. Right. So Montana, the pseida in harvachaloi. Well, we discussed this before we discussed the Hakdama last night. That there's a difference in hefsid on chol, meaning if it's to prevent a loss, or it's that you're manias revach is what it's called in the place, meaning you're just not going to profit. There's a big difference to make a loss that you're allowed to do melacha, right? But to increase that you can't do. So who's the Tanna that says pseida, and if it's a loss, yes, harvachaloi. But to improve that you're not allowed to do. But filu makam pseida. And even if it's a place of loss, you even limited what you can do because you can't be matria. You can't do something that's a big tircha. So who's that shita? Some Rav Huna, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. It's Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. The Tanna Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. You're allowed to pull water from one tree to another tree. Right? Remember we said yesterday that the water, they have these little canals that go around the property, and then you dig a hole and you pull water from one to the other. So trees need a lot of water. So you can pull the water from one tree to another tree. As long as you don't wash the entire field, meaning between trees you're allowed to do, but to go, I don't know, there's a terminology for that, like flooding, I guess, flooding the whole field.
Irrigate.
Or to irrigate the entire field. Yeah, I hear. Okay.
To Yaakov.
Yeah.
Let's say he has 100 trees on the field. He blocks off 2, and he doesn't want to do 98 trees. So he didn't do the whole field.
Well, so you mean saying then he's able to do it?
I mean, yeah, why not? He says as long as you don't do the whole field. So the guy didn't do the whole field. No.
I guess, but I don't know if it's a din in not doing the whole field, or is it pshat that only do what you need? But if you taka needed to do 100 trees, you can do 100 trees, no?
I don't know.
I think so. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like if you need to do 100 trees, do 100 trees, but don't just do the whole field at once. That's what it seems. Even though now this gets back into your thing. It might be easier to do the whole field at once. Right?
Well,
we saw that a lot in Beya, right? That there's sometimes you got to work harder on Yom Tov in order to make it different than the way way it normally is. Yeah, it's a little bit unclear. Hopefully, over the next couple of vlogs, we'll try and get a little clearer. So anyway, so it seems like that's Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, because he says you're allowed to go from tree to tree, but you can't do too much. So the Gemara asks, we're on the last thin line for those just joining us. Yeah, so Aimer the Shama Rabbi Eliezer Harvacha Deloy Tircha. I'm sorry, Harvacha Deloy. When did Rabbi Eliezer say that you're not allowed to do work on chol hamoed to improve things? Tircha b'makam say the mishamasle. But where did he say? So meaning we see that he clearly says you can't do improvements. But where do you see that you can't do a tircha if you're going to take a loss? That it doesn't say anywhere. Tell him Rapapa, how many Rabbi Yehuda? So the Tanna Mishna must be Rabbi Yehuda. Tani Mayan a yotze betchila. If you have a stream that's going, you just made this stream. Right? Mashkim imenu afilu sada beisabal. So what you can take water from that stream, and you can even do a beis habal. A beis habal is a field that doesn't really need too much irrigation because it's naturally irrigated because it's at the bottom of a hill. Right, so all the water runs off to it. That's shittas Rameir. You can only use the dried up field. You can only use this water for the dried up field. You can't use it for the field that's already irrigated. Not this and it's not this. The Gemara is going to say later what he means. Yes, okay. Not only that, Rabbi Yehuda said more than that. Right? A person should not clean out his. See, what happens is when you have these streams, so dirt and rocks fall in, and every once in a while you got to clean it out, right? So you're not allowed to remove all this for your garden, for your chorban on Chol Hamoed. Yes, the Gemara says my chorba. What does it mean dried up? If it's totally dried up, then what exactly are you putting in there to water? It sounds like it's already ruined, right? Sounds like it's already ruined. So what happened was that it dried up from, meaning one, it was being fed by multiple bodies of water. One dried up, and then another stream came, either came on top of it or near it or from a different angle. Right? So Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah says you can't do this, you can't do this. I don't think it's the word cherev, it's really chorav, right? Cherev is a sword. Chorav is right. That's yeah. Doesn't make a difference whether they dried up or it didn't dry up. Yeah. A new spring cannot be used. Right? So what bottom line is, what do you see from this whole thing? That Rabbi Yehuda says that you're not allowed to do melacha for harvacha. Right? Because he says only a field that already was already watered can you do it, because that's going to get ruined. But one that's never had the water, then you can. And then you can't do extra work either. Because he says you're not allowed to clean out all the dirt and the rocks that are in the previously dug stream. Okay, so the Gemara asks me, who says maybe when Yehuda says that you're allowed to do it to a dried up, but not to a unirrigated field, but an irrigated field not, Ela Mayan sheyotze betchila, he only allows it with a stream that's a brand new stream. On Toma Bays now. Dilma asilan pule. Right? So maybe it's going to fall down. Ava Mayan sheyotze betchila, but if it's a Mayan that's not new, the lo asilan pule, then it's not going to fall. Afilu beis habal nami, then maybe he would even allow a beis habal, which means that maybe Rabbi Yehuda would allow you to do improvements on chol hamoed, right? It's a little difficult to understand all these different streams coming and going. So the Gemara says, Im kain masnisan aman taramya, who are you going to put the Mishna on? If you don't say that it's Rabbi Yehuda, so then who's it like? Which is an interesting teretz, because so maybe the Mishna won't be like any of them. Maybe there's a different Tanna. Right? The Gemara is basically saying, well, if you don't think it's Rabbi Lazar ben, who was it? Rabbi Lazar. If you don't think it's Rabbi Lazar ben Yaakov, and you don't think it's Rabbi Yehuda, so then we have nobody that's going to take credit for this Mishnah. That's what Gemara says. In Cain, Masnisan Mantiram, 3 lines down on the base. Right? Who's the Mishnah gonna go like? El Rabbi Yehuda, it must be like Rabbi Yehuda. Loishna Mayan sheyotze betchila, but Loishna Mayan shelo yotze betchila. And Rabbi Yehuda does not differentiate between a brand new spring or not a brand new spring. Based on Shlachin in, if it's a field that needs to be manually watered, that you're allowed to do, because otherwise it's going to get ruined. Based on Baal Loi. But if it's a field that is naturally irrigated, then you're not allowed to do it. And so then why are you saying Mayan sheyotze betchila? To tell you the koyach of Rameir, that filu Mayan ayotze betchila, that Rameir is very makel, and he holds that even a brand new stream that you just dug, which has got a high risk for getting ruined, mashka mimenu afilu sadabal, and you're allowed to even irrigate a naturally irrigated field. So Rameir is the one that's very, very makel. Our Mishna is not going like Rameir. Our Mishna is only going like Rabbi Yehuda, who says that you can only do the minimum amount of work and for a loss only, not for improvements. Right? So that's the maskana that our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. Fine. Now we start with a different sugya. And then we get into shmitta. So itmar, we learned hamenachish ramashke mayim v'zroyim b'shabbos. Somebody who menachish means he weeds, meaning he rips out all the the weeds that are in his yard, and he waters the grass in his yard v'zroyim b'shabbos. So now, what's the isser? What is the isser? What do you give him hasra for? Right. So, what you look right into the Tosfos. It's I'm not gonna say it's an important Tosfos, but it's Tosfos for those that learn Makas for sure. It says the ein adam loike v'loy nerag ela b'hasra Tosfos mishamayim asrina. A person cannot get malchus and he can't get misa from Bezdin only b'hasra shemasrina loy. Only if you give him hasra was the loy sasa hachisura, and you have to tell him that he's not allowed to do this specific isser. With the mafkina b'sanhedrin. Mikra, the tzarich lefarish shame ha iser behedya. Yeah, what the Tosfos is saying from the Gemara. You can't, if you see somebody doing something wrong on Shabbos. Obviously, there's not negaya nowadays because we don't have Mises Pezin or Malchus. But back in those days, when you had to give somebody hasra, you couldn't just say, "Hey, by the way, I saw on the internet, a website, or an email that the rabbi said you're not allowed to do this. Why you're not allowed to do it? I don't know. That's not hasra. Hasra, the proper hasra is you have to tell them what the exact isser is that they're being over. And it could even be that you have to say the pasuk or the source. Right?
You have to tell the punishment?
Do you have to give the punishment?
Is that an hasra also? If there's no, I think if you don't tell them the punishment.
I don't know. I think other Rishonim may say that Tosfos says you just have to tell them the isser, and the you have to tell them the shame ha isser behedya.
Why? Why? Because of the ramifications, correct?
It's the ramifications.
So what's if it's a chatas or a misa? I mean, if you don't tell them what they.
No, but besides that, you have to tell them exactly what it is. You can't just say, "Oh, it's also to do that on Shabbos." You have to say why it's also. Which melacha you're being over on.
Everybody who probably 102 out of the 100 people on the Shia who are not happy with the American justice system now. Why would they like the Torah justice system? You never 100%. Punish anybody.
There's no way. You have to be educated. You have to be educated.
Aaron, you stole my line. Mama stole my line. Those are sorry that are complaining. I thought about it, but it's Friday.
Bottom line is the kanoim are actually have to put their money where their mouth is because they're gonna have to know the yisurim. They're not gonna be able to just say, "Hey, it's us." Okay, tell us where it's us. Give me the source. That's what you have to. That's what it is, right? So anyway, that's what Tosfos is saying. So the bottom line is what is the isser for taking out weeds from your yard and watering your yard? So Rabbi says it's plowing, right? And Rabbi Yosef on Mishum Zayreya, and Rabbi Yosef says it's planting. Now, why should ripping up weeds be considered planting? Right? So the answer is, why isn't it kaitzer? Right? This is why Shabbos is a geval. This is unbelievable, right? This guy is pulling out weeds, and we're saying he's either chayav for plowing, which he's not doing plowing, he's tearing out weeds, or he can be chayav for planting. The one thing that I would say is kaitzer, right? You cut down, no, kaitzer, you're fine for kaitzer, right? So, right, why? because he's not cutting down the weeds because he wants them. He's not cutting down the weeds. And kaitzer means you cut down a tree because you want the tree. You cut down a flower because you want the flower. Here, he's not pshat because you want it, right? You don't want the weeds. So it's not kaitzer. What it is planting, because by taking out the weeds, you are causing everything else. Weeds kill other grass, right? So by taking out the weeds, you're causing other things to grow.
What says Dovish in the Miskaven?
What do you mean? But it was mischaven.
I don't want to make it better. I just don't want the weeds.
You do. No, the reason why you don't want the weeds is because you want the rest of the grass to grow.
I don't like the way the weeds look in my front lawn.
Okay, so that could be, but it's not. You mean just doing it not for looks? Okay, so then maybe enochanami in that scenario, maybe it would be in a mischaven. Enochanami, it could be. So that's the machlokes, whether it's for planting or for plowing. So it makes more sense like me. What does plowing do? It loosens up the ground. So when you pull out the weeds, and you water it, it makes the ground looser. It's more like me. Right? The derech of the seed when you plant is to make the things grow. What's your point when you plant things? What's it gonna? It makes things grow. So too, you also make the plants grow. Somebody Abay the Rabbi Abay says you both have kashas. Parents, you started the grill. Yeah, fine. So the lidach kasha.
I got an early start.
All right, it's reason makdim. Yeah. So the lidach kasha mishum chayrish. According to one, it's a chayv. Why is it not plowing? Mishum chayrish in mishum zerei aloi. Why is it plowing? Yes, and not planting. But Rabbi Yosef kasha mishum zerei in mishum chayrish lo. Planting yes, plowing not. Bechitei mekolei chadika tarti lo mechayev elachada. And if you're going to say, well, if there's two isurim, meaning sometimes you could be over on multiple isurim on Shabbos, right? The classic, like Tosfos brings, is if you eat a bug, so you're over on 4 isurim, 5 isurim. So do you say that there's two you're chayev, and when there's two things you're chayev on, you're only chayev on one, meaning really you would be chayev for plowing and for planting. But we're only mechayev you one. If somebody prunes, and he needs, meaning, so pruning is to make things grow better, but you also need the wood, then chayev shtayim, you have chayev twice. Achas v'shum neiteya, one for planting, achas v'shum kaitzer, and one for gathering, right? So you see that you can be over twice. So the Gemara says, kasha, it's a kasha. Now there's two fascinating things in this Tosfos. B'shua marchuk look over the simcha. I couldn't get away without saying a fascinating Tosfos. I passed on it from before, but right. So first of all, anybody that learned in yeshiva knows kamle b'derabamine, right? So you know kamle b'derabamine, you only give one punishment. So what's the Gemara saying here that you give 2 punishments? Or for bugs, 4 punishments, right? We know you only give 1 punishment. So what's the difference if you over how many yisurim? Right? So Tosfos says a yisaidistic answer. Kamle b'derabamine is when you get 2 punishments, one is stricter than the other. A guy's chayev misa and malchus, you only give him misa. But if he's chayev 4 or 5 malchus, then you give him all 4 or 5 malchus. Obviously, if his body could handle it, right? It's a big yisoid in Shas. Really, it's here, right? In this Tosfos, you only say that you give the stronger punishment when there's 2 punishments to give, one stronger than the other. But if all the punishments are the same, meaning they're all malchus, like if you eat bugs, so that's 4 malchus. Then
wait, what's the svar of kamle derame?
It's what's the English word for that? Double jeopardy? No, that's you don't try him twice.
The same svar of kamle derame, you shouldn't give him 5 malchus.
No, that's not what it is. No, kamle derame means you have 2 punishments to give him. You give him the stricter one. I
understand, but why are you giving him the stricter one?
What?
Why? What? Because why? English.
Included in 200 is 100.
So good.
Right? Okay, whatever it is.
Rav
That's
Zev,
the
Rav
Gemara.
Zev, the guy
other
first
story
tells
is
you he's going to donate $1,000, then he changes it to 5,000. You're going to want him to give you just 1,000? No,
I want.
you're going to
no,
want
I
the
want,
5. You're
I
going to
want
want
6.
6. Right,
I want
but we don't
6.
say you can't be a chazer, Professor. You know what I mean?
Why not?
So you get to choose which one do you want. So which one do you think you'd be happy with? The 5. No, that's kamle b'derabim.
Right.
Kasha is
Okay.
from the line before in
Parrots.
Parents,
I
you
don't
love
know
each
Machlokes,
other.
whether we learn
Parents and lunch, parents. Look at you.
I have no idea what you said.
Parents. See.
I have
On a
no-
Friday
no-
also.
No idea what you said, Parrots. I'm on the show.
Lamdas.
Anyways.
According to the Madamar who learns Kedei Rishasa, there's a Kasha here. That's not
Yeah,
Kamle Bidrabim.
Yeah, Gershon, we didn't learn that, man. So
One second. I hear
Gershon,
your
stop
kasha.
showing off. We just learned.
It's 1 second. 1 second. I have to say, Gershon opened his mouth. Now I'm going to get Gershon on one of his kashas. You ready? It's not me. It's Toisus. Who's the Gemara asking a kasha from? From on Rabbi Yosef and Abaya, right? From Rav Kahana. They're all on my Rayim. What are you asking me a kasha from Rav Kahana? Right? That's a Gershon kasha right there. Right? Is he asking a kasha? Normally you ask a kasha from a Tanna, from a Brisa. Here is asking from one Amira to another Amira. So what? So you say that, I say this, right? So Toisus says, in this Toisus Chayev Shtayim, it's an interesting Toisus. He says, where is it? V'avagav the Rav Kana Amirahu, Makshimine l'Rabba v'Rav Yosef, Mishum the Gavra Rabba Hava. Since he was a Gavra Rabba, it's mamash at the bottom of the Toisus of the Chayev, at the bottom of it. Since Rav Kahana was a Gavra Rabba, therefore we could ask a kasha on other Amirayim from another Amir. Okay. Anyways,
I don't understand. Why didn't they ask from all the Tanoim hold? The first Amud, base Amud Aleph and Baba Kama. Obvious and Togus. Everyone holds that if you do two, you chayiv twice.
correct. But you don't know why it's not Kimle B'Derabim.
But the Tanoim, that's Tanoim Lamai. So why are we asking for Rav Kana, not the Tanoim?
Oh, you want to stam ask from there instead of Rav Kahana?
Yeah.
Okay, I hear that. Okay, let's go a little weiter. So Eser Rav Yosef l'Rabba Hamanachesh, somebody who pulls out the weeds. He takes weeds from Machafa and the Klayim, and you cover Klayim, meaning somebody has, let's go with a simple case. He's growing wheat, and he's growing grapes together in the yard. So that's an Isser, right? So if he does that, so if you weed out stuff, meaning you didn't actually plant the Klayim, it was planted there before, but you pull out the weeds, which will obviously help it grow, or you cover over things with dirt. So Malchus, you get Malchus. Even if you don't do anything, but you just watch it, right? Meaning, I don't know if it means you watch it, but you don't, you just help it out a little bit, you're also going to get Malchus. He says, according to me, that I say that the Isser of pulling out weeds is planting. I know the Asir is Real B'Klayim. So therefore, you see planting is Asir by Klayim. But according to you, it says plowing. Charisha B'Klayim Mi Asira. Is there plowing by Klayim? How could you have plowing by Klayim? Plowing is just taking dirt and making a hole in it. That's not, what does that have to do with Klayim? Right? Planting has to do with Klayim because you Klayim means it's crossbreeding, right? So how can that be? How can you have plant Klayim and this by plowing? You don't do Klayim by plowing. So Malay Mishum Mekayim. He said, no, what I meant is it means from Mekayim. The Ketani say Rabbi Kiva and Afa Mekayim, but if Rabbi Kiva says even if you're Mekayim, Mechlal the Tanna that which holds Malchus, that means that the Tanakama holds Mekayim is not. Mechlal Tanakama la Mishum Mekayim. So my answer is cooler Rabbi Kiva. The whole Bryce of Rabbi Kiva. Ma tam kommer. He's explaining himself. Ma tam amanachish mechav b'klayim like mishum mekayim. Why you get Malchus if you cover over it with dirt or you take weeds out? Because of mekayim. Rabbi Kiva Aimer afa mekayim. Because Rabbi Kiva says even mekayim is going to be chayim and klayim. Even if you just maintain it, you didn't actually do anything proactive to the klayim. My time with Rabbi Kiva. Why does Rabbi Kiva say that even if you don't have any part in the planting, Tanya, Sadchalei Sizra Klayim. It says you shouldn't plant Klayim, ainly ala Zereya. Then it only tells me that planting. Makayim inayin. How do you know that you're not even allowed to make sure that it just stays? Like, how do you call it? Maintain it. Tamaloimer Klayim Sadchaloi. So the pasuk says Klayim Sadchaloi, meaning you darshan it both ways. right? So klayim in your sada you shouldn't have. You shouldn't have it at all, even if it's just you that's maintaining it, right? Okay, we'll stop here, and we can move it to 8 o'clock, Aaron, because Icky is here. He's in the East Coast, so we could start 8. I don't know if the island wants to start 8 or 8:15. What's the show?
The earlier the better.
Okay, so
For me, at
there you
least.
go. Jesse has spoken. 8 o'clock, yeah, Aaron, you'll send it out. All right, shkoyach again for anybody who
Shkoyach,
came to
thank
see
you.
him. It was very nice. Shkoyach, Aaron Kaplan. Have a good Shabbos.
Yeah. Have a great
Good
Shabbos.
Shabbos, everybody. Good Shabbos.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good
Yeah.
Shabbos.
All right, have a good Shabbos.